Welcome back into Foolish Club Media. I am Steven Serda, hanging out with my guy Rocky Magaña. Rocky, week 3 is behind us. Sunday night football, Kansas City Chiefs, New York Giants, and the Chiefs take home a victory. Finally, Rocky, it's a 22-9 win over the Giants, and a a much more encouraging second half from the Kansas City Chiefs than what we saw in the first half. So we got plenty to get into on tonight's game. But before we criticize, I do want to celebrate a win. The Chiefs are not 0-3, thankfully, like the New York Giants. They come away with this win, and it was a desperate game for the Chiefs. And at no point did it ever really feel like they were going to lose this game or anything like that. But it was still a very ugly contest until the start of the second half. So we're going to celebrate the wins when we can get them this season, Rocky, because this offense still has a long way to go. But Tyquan Thornton looks like he is a serious playmaker for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that's at least worth celebrating tonight.
Yeah, Tyquan Thornton is our F it. Tyquan's down there somewhere. I'm just gonna chuck it and see what happens, guy. And this was really like this game was a tale of two halves, right? Like it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, kind of situation. In the first half, it was like the Giants came out and they were like, okay, we're gonna control the ball to try to keep Mahomes off the field and just run the ball nonstop. And the Chiefs were like, okay, all we can do is try to control the ball because we have no explosive playmakers and we want to keep Mahomes on the field. And then Russell Wilson and Isaiah Pacheco were like, wild card, bitches. And they were just like, we're going to just throw a monkey wrench into both of our team's game plans and just run the opposite direction and throw terrible interceptions and just make it an ugly, ugly, ugly first half for both of our teams. Because going into halftime, it didn't look like looked like a game of not which team's going to win this game, but which team is going to do the best job at losing it. And then the Chiefs came out in the second half and they had probably their best drive of the entire season so far. Like even like Andy's play calling, it was his best play calling of the drive. I mean, best play calling drive of the entire season. And listen, Andy Reid said this a couple years back. I can't remember the exact quote, but what he said something like not every single one of Beethoven's paintings were masterpieces or something like that, like purposely misquoting it, but a win is a win in the National Football League. And I'll take it, baby. Like an ugly win when you're 0-2 is a beautiful thing, right? Just getting a win
Yeah,
in the win column and just getting that monkey off your back, getting ready to go in to play Baltimore. Um, you know, like I think I saw somebody in the comment section say saving Worthy was a good idea for next week. 100%. It was a great idea for next week because why risk him against the Giants when you don't have to, right? And we'll get into the defense, but Steve Spagnuolo had a GOAT performance as defensive coordinator today. The defense was just off the
yeah.
chain, playing out of its mind. And Russell Wilson makes you look really good as a defensive coordinator, but it was a fun second half to watch.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too much into next week's matchup against the Ravens, but like we know the Kansas City Chiefs have to play better next week. Because this Ravens team is a scary, scary football team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, it's still plenty of things to improve on. Still lots of things that we think they have to get better at. And still some answers that you're hoping you find when you're fully healthy in the wide receiver room as we move forward this season. But at the end of the day, the New York Giants aren't a good football team. I don't think anybody is delusional about that. And this is a game you should easily win. And the Chiefs did that, even though it was very frustrating in the first half. It was still ugly in the first half. I don't know what Andy Reid said to them at halftime, but they at least came out in the second half and looked like a stable team, because that was the thing that was so frustrating to me in the first half is like, Rocky, we know that the Chiefs are better than the Giants. Like, we definitively know they are a better football team. And in the first half, it was just so chaotic, and it just looked like they were unprepared again, and it was just costly mistake after costly mistake. And then they finally get it all figured out in the second half, and thankfully, it means they get their first win of the season, and they don't fall to 0-3. Like, they're a 1-2 football team now. They got their first win behind them. They got that figured out, and now they can move forward, and they can try to capitalize and build off of the positive things that they learned about themselves in the second half of this game.
Oh, 100%. That's exactly what they need to do, and they got some momentum going into next week, right? And, like, that's just I mean, momentum's a hell of a thing, right? Like, whether or not it was a pretty performance, whether or not the Giants are a terrible team, they're walking away from this game feeling good about how they played in the second half, right? And, I mean, like, listen, like like, there's a conversation that has to be had about Isaiah Pacheco. Like he just his head isn't even in the game half the time, it looks like. His situational awareness is horrible. He ran the opposite direction on a route, and like, I don't wanna like, it sucks when you're right about bad things about your team, but, like, God, like, can I run a victory lap about Jawan Taylor at some point? Like 3 years I've been pounding the table over Jawan Taylor needing to be benched, and it's like it's at an embarrassing point at this point where he just, like, he cannot continue to play for this football team. He is going to really get Patrick Mahomes seriously injured against a good football team. Now, the Giants have an excellent pass rush, right? And but you saw he had to cheat. He had to cheat to try to even like play like competent offensive line play. And so so it wasn't a perfect game by any means, but it was a fun game. And so we're gonna stick to the positives because it was a win. But it's just like there are it's not all sunshine and roses even with a victory.
Yeah, and we always get this, Rocky, like, oh, you guys come on here and you criticize the team even after they win or whatever, and it's like, no, we're just highlighting flaws, and we're highlighting things that this team has to figure out and get better about if they want to get to where they would like to go, which is not just make the playoffs, which is not just keep the AFC West streak alive. It's get back to another Super Bowl. Like, that's what this team does. And the way that they played in the first half of this game, I was ready to be like, okay, maybe it's over. Like, maybe it is. Maybe I don't know that I don't think Rasheed Rice and Xavier Worthy are going to fix all the problems that this team looks like they have right now. But the second half, and they had their moments against the Chargers, and they had a couple of moments against the Eagles where, like, if Kelsey doesn't let that ball slip through his hands, doesn't get intercepted, like, they could very well have beaten the Eagles last week. If Kelsey finishes that play off and gets a touchdown instead of turning it into an interception. And then, like, the Eagles, sneak out a win today where they were trailing for most of the game. They come back against the Rams, and the Rams just kind of fumbled this thing against the Eagles for their second straight time. Like, but the Eagles are a good football team, and that's why they can overcome uh, those types of circumstances. And the Chiefs have been that, but today in the second half, I think was the first time this season where they just needed to beat up on a team that's not as talented as they are, and they needed to do it, and they needed to do it convincingly. And I think that went a long way with, not just the fans and the coaches. Like, I think the players needed that after an 0-2 start where almost nothing was going right aside from Patrick Mahomes just running for his life because that was the only thing they could create offensively. They actually looked competent on the offensive side of the ball in the second half of this one. And so we can start with the offensive line, really, because in the first half, it was a problem. And, Josh Simmons picked up an early penalty in this one. But other than that, I thought Simmons had a pretty good game. I didn't think the offensive line was like a total disaster other than Jawan Taylor. And it is time to really have that conversation, Rocky. Like, Jalen Moore is there. Should we give Jalen Moore a look? Because even if you think like, oh, well, he's got that knee that, has still been nagging him and they're still trying to manage, like Jawan Taylor has just simply been too big of a negative so far this season. And Brian Burns was just absolutely destroying him in the first half of this game. And so I think that the Chiefs still have faith in Taylor, and I think that we can continue to talk about it and be frustrated by his play on a week in, week out basis. But I feel like it's gonna take like it's gonna take like a Trey Hendrickson against Kingsley last year type of performance before the Chiefs will actually even consider moving off of Jawan Taylor for whatever reason that is.
Well, 100%. And it's like we had that in the first half. It was that bad. Like Taylor like lined up like a guy in illegal for like literally got a drive stalling illegal formation penalty for not lining up on the line of scrimmage because he knew he had to cheat in order to get back in his stance to block Brian Burns. And then immediately following that, when he has to get on the line, he's just so upright. And if it's his knee injury, okay, fine, but he shouldn't be out on the field, right? He should, like either way you slice it, either he's not talented enough to hang in the NFL and he has to cheat to either just to hang, or he's too injured to play in the NFL right now. But either way, he shouldn't be on the field. Period. Because what happens? He can't. He has his pad level is so high because he stands straight up out of his stance because he can't bend his knees. That bull could get underneath his pad level and throw him on his ass. Like it's like he's straight up and down and just getting thrown backwards by even like the most like competent defensive lineman. And it's like it's not hard with like leverage and center of gravity are a very easy thing to kind of figure out, right? You get your pad level lower than the pass rusher's pad level and you stand them up. When have we ever seen Jawan Taylor do that? We don't. He's like straight up and down and just getting manhandled on a play after play basis. I don't care if he's making $20 million a year. Like whether he's making $20 million a year to sit there and squeeze Gatorade into people's mouths when they walk off the field or to play right tackle for you, that money is already spent. The only difference you can make is the product on the field. Like the paycheck is already signed.
And aside from, the losses that Taylor was suffering, like I do think the Chiefs offensive line held up fairly well tonight against a really, really talented defensive line. Like we're talking Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence. And then they've got their top 10 pick, top pass rusher in this past year's NFL draft. They've got him playing linebacker right now for whatever reason. And that dude's a monster too, Abdul Carter. Um, like those guys are scary. Like that is a scary defensive line. And I think for the most part, like, I think something that we should all be happy about is that Mahomes only rushes for 5 yards in this game. Like in the second half, they finally like there was an emphasis coming out that they are going to try to run the football a little bit. Now it's still not overwhelming. It's not explosive. It's not gonna be the reason that you win football games in the long run, but it at least seems like it's stabilized them a little bit. Like they were at least getting enough from Pacheco and Hunt in the rushing game in the second half to kind of stabilize the offense and make Mahomes feel better back there, and then give Mahomes the confidence to stand in the pocket and deliver some of these throws that wound up being the game deciding plays, like Tyquan Thornton. And Travis Kelsey, still another quiet game aside from like a blow up on the sideline in the first half out of frustration, which again, I think we all know what that's about. I don't think there's some, weird behind the scenes thing going on with Travis Kelsey. I think Travis Kelsey wants to win and he wants to make sure that coming back this season wasn't a waste of his time. And so when you play as poorly offensively as they have through the first 2.5 games of the season, I could totally understand where Travis Kelsey's coming from. And then, but then like Hollywood Brown is still fine. Juju had a nice night tonight, and Juju, I think, like they need to. I would rather see them over the next few weeks because Jalen Royals was active tonight, but I didn't see him out there on the field at all. If he got any snaps, he didn't get very many. But I would like to see Juju more in that kind of like designed intermediate area of the field because he can break tackles still. Like he's not explosive, but Juju can read his own and he can still break some tackles. He's still a big bodied, like strong wide receiver because they were doing so much of that with Hollywood over the first 2 weeks, and it's like that is simply not what he does. Like this dude does not break tackles. He as soon as he catches the football, if he tries to go at anybody, he just gets immediately tossed to the ground, and he doesn't have like the game breaking speed in the same way that he did early in his NFL career. Like he's still a fast player, but he doesn't fly like he used to after a lot of injuries have stacked up over the years. And so I think this wide receiver rotation, assuming you get Xavier Worthy back next week, and then we can kind of see how Worthy coexists in all of this, because we still haven't even seen that yet, Rocky. But I do think he's going to be a significant part of the offense if he's ready to go next week against the Baltimore Ravens. And the early signs for him and Tyquan Thornton are really encouraging for the Chiefs passing attack. Then you hope the offensive line continues to figure things out and they find some answers and gel better as a unit as Josh Simmons gets better. And maybe it's Jalen Moore, maybe Jawan Taylor gets healthier as the season goes on. I don't know. But at the end of the day, this was the first sign in the first 3 weeks of the season that there's still a, a place for the Chiefs to climb. Like there's still like they can still be a lot better, and it's encouraging that they're figuring it out with the players that they have available now. And then you get these other guys back into the mix, and hopefully that means the offense can actually like take off down the stretch.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, no. Juju, like Unc has got that old man strength now later in his career. Like he can break a tackle and he just has like that like you're trying to wrestle your dad kind of like strength at this point where he can just kind of muscle those extra couple of yards, and he's a bit of a tank to bring down. And it's fun. I think Juju's a really fun player to watch right now. Like you say, he's not overly explosive, but he knows where to go. He knows where to be. He's reliable, and he's going to get the yards after the catch just because he's got some strength. And I would like to say justice for Juju that like halfway through the game, like they're playing like Kendrick Lamar, they not like us. And one thing I thought to myself at that point in the game, I mean, we are kind of like you guys at this point. Like both teams are kind of playing the same, but also Brian Burns is sitting there doing a dance at like midfield, like on a football field, and they crucified Juju for that, for not even doing it during the game, like doing it pregame, right? And so now you see like players doing it all the time, and it's no big deal because TikTok's a much bigger thing than it used to be. But justice for Juju. He got wrongly convicted for having fun on the football field in his younger years. Now I like older Unk Juju a lot better than I liked TikTok Juju. But that being said, I just think it bears mentioning that these kids these days, they don't know how good they have it just being on a TikTok without repercussions out there.
It's like I'd have to go back and really try to take a like closer look at it to like really break it down. But like I just think that Juju makes so much more sense, like, just is the Chiefs' like main slot guy who can win that and do that stuff in the short intermediate areas and get those quick passes out to the sideline and like break a tackle and stuff like that. Whereas they were just doing it with Hollywood Brown for the first 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
it was just so meaningless. Like it was just so dumb, and it was so frustrating to watch because it was like, who thinks this is going to work? Like who thinks that he's going to go shed a tackler and rip off 50 yards or something like that? Yeah, and you don't need to live like that. Like, yes, hopefully when Rice comes back and Worthy is healthy, then you can start living like that. Tyquan Thornton's already given you a downfield element that you simply haven't had in recent years, and so all signs are at least pointing up on the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and I do feel like the second half of this game was the first time I felt like, okay, it feels like they've identified the way they want to deploy these guys, and now you get Worthy back into the mix, and hopefully Worthy can be a game changer. And then all of a sudden your offense is cooking now. And hopefully you start stacking some wins. Because even if you don't win next week against the Baltimore Ravens, like, yes, it would be awesome. I would imagine going into that game, the Ravens are going to be favored over the Kansas City Chiefs. But it would be awesome if you could somehow get a win against the Ravens next week. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think the Ravens are really, really good right now. But even if you do wind up going 1-3, the important part is that you get the one win right now, and you aren't staring down the barrel of 0-4 next week after losing to the freaking New York Giants.
Yeah, no, that would have been a really dark place to be, quite honestly, especially the way the Giants played today. Um, but I will say this: like Andy Reid has a good finger on the tempo and on like the pulse of this team, and I feel like honest to God, like when I watched that blow up with him and Reed on the sideline, it looked a little bit to me like Reed may have been a little bit of the instigator. Like he thought his offense needed a little bit more juice and attitude, and that they were low energy or something. But it looked like that both of them were just going back and forth at each other. But it wasn't like in the Super Bowl, he ran up on Reed and bumped him, and Reed was kind of shocked to take it back. Reed was going towards him in this situation, and they were both going back and forth at each other. And then at halftime, Reed said, "Good. I'm glad. I want them to have more energy." So part of me feels like it may have been planned by Big Red, like just to try to like we got to do something different. What we're doing right now isn't working. We need more energy. We need guys. We need guys to feel passionate about winning this game because you don't want to go into Baltimore 0-3, right? And be staring down 0-4. If the Chiefs can somehow pull out a win next week, right, against the Ravens, that being down, still being down Rashi Rice, then you feel okay about them going into week 5 being 2-2, that there's still a possibility for this season, right? Like 2-2 is so much different than 1-3, right? And so we got a really important game ahead. We don't want to talk too much about it, like we said, but like you set yourself up a lot better for next week, obviously, with a win today.
And I think too, the offense certainly still has a long way to go, I think. And we legitimately aren't going to see what like their final form is until they get Rishi Rice back into this thing. But I think like even the fact that you started 0-2 and now you're sitting at 1-2 through 3 weeks with a massive matchup against the Ravens coming up. Um, I would think that most Chiefs fans would be pretty happy with the offensive line performance through 3 weeks. Like, aside from Jawan Taylor, like Josh Simmons looks legit, and Josh Simmons looks like he is going to be a cornerstone player uh, for the Chiefs for the foreseeable future, and so that looks like a massive win. And then something that's been happening all this week, Rocky, is now people are. I'm gonna kill this fly. I swear. Um, Now people are doing the whole, questioning Brett Veach's talent evaluation and the decision making and blah, 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 and this is why the Chiefs are the Chiefs right now, and they're not the Eagles, and as if the Eagles haven't gone through, like, multiple rebuilds in the in the last few years. You know, it's funny because it's just like, well, I mean, they just kept winning, so what does it matter at the end of the day? Everybody can do that in football, like, go back and look like hindsight, like, "You should've done this, you should've done that, blah, 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 blah." Yes, maybe they've struggled to find, like, blue chip players or whatever, but, like, I think they also, the Chargers, how many top 10 picks have they had in the Herbert era, Rocky? Like, how many high-end draft picks have the Broncos had? And even, like, Denver, to their credit, like, has done a really good job of hitting on guys in the mid to late rounds. Um, but they've also put a lot of investment and resources into that team. Like, so everybody can criticize Veach and the staff and how they built this team and do whatever and question all of that. But at the end of the day, like, you'd rather not be 1-2 right now, but I don't think that it's over. Like, I don't think that the sky's falling. Like, I'm getting encouraged by the team. The defense has played much better over the last 2 games than they did in week 1, and, and sometimes that is legitimately it's week 1 and you get got because you're underprepared for something a team's going to do because it's week 1 and there's no film, there's nothing for you to dissect and break down and game plan because teams change a lot over the course of an off season. So, like, I think the temp check on this team right now, like last week, it was like, yeah, we might have legitimate problems. And I know this is against the Giants. I know they're not a particularly talented football team. This is a game you should just come in and dominate like the Kansas City Chiefs did. But overall, I just feel better because for the first time, I think all season, they looked like they were playing like as a team and looks like in the second half of this game like they were finally like enjoying themselves because I don't think it looked like that at all in week 1 or in week 2 against the Eagles.
No, it didn't at all, and they looked much better today. And with the Brett Veach stuff, like here's the thing that people don't understand, who aren't like, who don't just like sit there and crunch tape on guys like nonstop. Like literally going into the draft every year, like if you ask NFL teams, they'll have a first round grade on maybe 16 players in the entire draft. Like there's 16 blue chip guys in the entire draft that they have a first round grade on. And everybody else like that, they're their second round grades, but there's 32 picks in a round. So you're taking a guy you have a second round grade on in the first round. So if you're doing that, you're picking like a dozen guys down the draft board of second round talent because of where you're picking, because of the success you've had every year. So you can say that the Chiefs don't have blue chip talent, but considering the guys that they've hit on and considering the fact that every single one of those guys probably had a second round grade on them, maybe with the exception of Trent McDuffie because he slid down draft boards. But I mean, like Josh, you must say like they haven't hit on anybody since that draft. Well, they hit on Rashi Rice. He's a hit. Josh Simmons is a hit. Xavier Worthy was a hit. Like the Chiefs have hits. Brett Veach has hits. And I'm sorry if the guy who has gone to 5 Super Bowls in 6 years isn't a good enough talent evaluator for you to put a good enough product on the field, that you're not happy with how the team's playing right now. But like the NFL is designed, it is purposefully designed to prevent the Kansas City Chiefs from existing, and they've still managed to exist for over half a decade and do exactly what the NFL does not want any team to do, right? Like I'm sorry, like at some point, like you're like no other team is doing this, no other GM is doing this, and yeah, we have the best coach in the NFL currently. Yeah, we have the best quarterback in the NFL currently, and that's a big part to it. But guess what? Brett Veach signed Randy Reed to an extension. He got Mahomes' deals done. And he's kept him happy, right? Like give the guy some credit. Like you say, oh, you didn't draft Mahomes. He was the guy who convinced everybody to draft Mahomes, if you know anything about the story, right? And so like this whole
Yeah.
like Brett Veach is the problem thing, like skip me with that. Brett Veach is is the reason we are where we are today.
And and I'm not even necessarily against like the Chiefs looking to bring some new blood like into the coaching staff. But it's also like at the end of the day, it's Andy Reid. Like, yes, I think it always benefits any NFL team to constantly be looking at young guys, young minds, and like innovative coaches. And that's why like the McVays and the Shanahans are constantly having their staffs just rebuilt year after year because they do that. Andy Reid doesn't do that so much anymore. Even though, there is a couple of young coaches like on his staff, it's just not really like you gotta just happen to like come up through the pipeline for Andy Reid and then get opportunities because you're not going like unless Spags gets a head coaching job, which is pretty unlikely at this point in his career. Like, there's nowhere to go for the Kansas City Chiefs. There's nowhere for you to like prove yourself. So, um, like I do think that they could probably use a little bit of fresh blood, but I'm not saying like Steve Spagnuolo, like I'm even seeing like him catch criticism now because Josh Uche didn't work last year for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's having a really good year for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's like, yeah, I get that that can be frustrating. Like, why can't Spags just find a way to utilize that guy? But guy coaches have body types, coaches have systems, they have guys that they like to use and how they want to deploy them. And it is annoying and it is frustrating, but that's also like football. And I'm not going to sit here and say Steve Spagnuolo is the greatest defensive coordinator in NFL history 1 minute and then get frustrated because some player that they traded a nothing draft pick for and then waived after last season after he barely got any playing time for them works out with somewhere else. Like, yeah, Josh Uche, this might have been his last chance to like make it in the NFL, and hopefully he does have a monster year and winds up going and getting a big contract from somebody. Like he needed that kind of season after the way his time ended with the Patriots and how he did nothing with the Kansas City Chiefs. But I'm gonna trust Steve Spagnuolo because Rocky, for the second straight game, after that awful week one performance, the Kansas City Chiefs defense was pretty good tonight. And Chris Jones finally got home. I know that outside of Andrew Thomas, this Giants offensive line isn't exactly a special unit or anything like that. And Thomas, this is his first game action in like over a year. Um, but like the defensive line finally was getting after it a little bit. The secondary for the second straight week looked really, really good. And Steve Spagnuolo basically said, all right, throw your Darius Slayton at me, throw your Jalen Hyatt, throw your Wandale Robinson and Theo Johnsons at us. Simply what we are not going to allow to happen is Malik Neighbors is not going to destroy us. Like Malik Neighbors is not going to beat us. So try to beat us with everybody else, Russell. And without Malik Neighbors and the threat that he brings to the table, because he is an extremely, extremely talented wide receiver, the Giants offense just couldn't ever get anything going because the Chiefs secondary for the second straight week played really, really well.
Oh, 100%. Like, not only did Steve Spagnuolo say, okay, send your Wandell, give me your Wandell Morrises and your Wandell Robinsons and your Darius Slaytons. He also said, like, listen, I like Cam Scatterboo, but it's like if I'll deal with getting beat by a guy who ran 7 seconds in the 40-yard dash, right? Like I'll take my chances with Cam Scatterboo, like not breaking something open against us instead of a guy like Malik Neighbors. Like it was the old Belichick thing, right? Like just erase their best player and make them play left-handed, right? And that's what he did, and that was the entire game plan, and that's all he had to do against the Giants because Malik Neighbors is the crux of their offense, much like Travis Kelce used to just be the crux of the Chiefs offense. Like when teams would just say we're going to erase Travis Kelce, then the Chiefs
Yeah.
offense would struggle, right? It's the exact same thing, only with Malik Neighbors now. And to Spagnuolo's credit, he had a perfect game plan to erase Malik Neighbors from this football game, and it frustrated Russell Wilson and caused him to force throws and force interceptions, which we've seen that out of Russell Wilson this year. Like that's why they lost to Dallas. Like Dallas has the worst secondary in the NFL, but yet Russell Wilson found a way to throw away the Dallas game in overtime by throwing a horrible interception because he gets frustrated, and Spagnuolo saw that on tape and he said, okay, that's cool. I'm just going to erase some Malik Neighbors and just wait for him to throw the ball up and make a mistake. And he did it a couple of times, and the Chiefs monopolized on it. And then the pass rush got home because, Russell Wilson was trying to hold the ball, make things happen, trying to push the ball down the field because he got frustrated. And then, like you said, outside of Andrew Thomas, the Giants offensive line isn't anything to write home about. Right. And so there was going to be opportunities to put pressure on Russell Wilson. Right. Like this was a get right game for the defense. Very much so. And I mean, they got a much tougher test next week in Lamar Jackson.
Yes.
Right. And then Derrick Henry, who newsflash, I think he's been doing leg day. His legs actually look larger this season than they have in years past. So I think that in his old age, Derrick Henry realized that he has to finally start working out his legs. And so
Yeah.
he actually looks good.
Yeah. I just think, and they still don't have Christian Fulton in the mix here. But I mean, this is a dangerous group of Giants pass catchers. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's like Malik Neighbors is the only guy that's like elite. Like nobody else in that wide receiver room scares you, even though they might be able to burn you here and there. They've got a lot of speed there. But Neighbors is the only guy that like is an all around wide receiver that is like a legitimate wide receiver one in the NFL. And so that was pretty clearly what the Chiefs' game plan was. And then Jalen Watson, after really struggling in week one, I think has played pretty well the last couple of weeks. McDuffie's been great. And then the Chiefs safeties have kind of put it together a little bit here. Brian Cook did leave this game with a neck injury, so that's something to keep an eye on. So now the Chiefs are a little bit thin in the safety room. But also we saw Noel Williams out there like getting some run. And I think that's really encouraging because I think Noel Williams deserves more playing time. Like when he's out on the field, like Noel Williams looks like he's a player, Rocky. Like he looks like he can make some things happen for the Chiefs secondary. And so I've been really encouraged by the limited role that he's had the last couple of weeks. But when he's been on the field, like you notice him on the field every time he's getting snaps. And I think that's really, really encouraging for a young fourth round cornerback.
Oh, really? For sure. And with Noah Williams, the thing that's been impressed me about him tonight that I didn't really see in his college tape was he was always a ball hawking kind of guy. He'd play a little bit of off coverage and then he would attack the ball and get an interception, right? But he's playing a lot more physical now than he ever did in college. And I don't know if it's because like Spagnuolo just basically said, you want to get on the field, you got to play more physical. And he picked up the mantle and took the challenge. And to his credit, awesome. But he's playing completely different now. You know, I saw tonight than he did in college. It's a different style of football. And he looked good in it. He looked really good as a player tonight. I like, especially with it kind of being his first extended play that we've seen. So I mean, I was a fan of I was a fan of Noah Williams tonight. Chris Roland Wallace continues to be like a little diamond in the rough guy who all he does is make plays and create turnovers. You know,
Yeah.
before Brian Cook went out, he looked really nice. He looked really good today. Yeah, I mean the secondary on the whole, I'd say the secondary deserves a game ball today, right? The secondary played pretty much lights out for the most part, right? The
Yeah.
whole defense played great. Like you held an NFL team to single digits, right? Like Spagnuolo says his goal is to keep them under 13 every game. Like if they could keep them under 13, then they
Yeah.
think they had a really good game. You kept them to 6, right? You kept them to less than like they scored a touchdown, but they don't have a kicker, so you held
Yeah.
them to less than a standard touchdown for the game. Like it's pretty damn good. Like that's a pretty
Yeah.
good by any stretch of the imagination. That's a pretty good defensive performance in the NFL.
And it was just nice to see Chris Jones like winning and making some plays. I think he needed that too. Like, because we've talked about like all the attention that he's commanded over the first couple of games of the season, and those offensive lines that they played are a lot better than what they saw tonight against the New York Giants. But it felt like Chris Jones kind of needed like a big game, big win kind of night. And Charles Omenihu, who did get banged up a little bit in this one, so that's something to watch for the Chiefs as we move forward throughout the week because Mike Dana's banged up now too, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, not feeling great about that defensive line depth now. If Omenihu and Dana are going to miss some time, but Omar Norman Lott quietly got the start tonight, and had a couple of moments. I think Omar Norman Lott is still a highly developmental player, but it's still really early in the season to where like you've still seen like a couple of signs that like make you feel like encouraged about his potential here moving forward too. So like all in all, like good win. Wasn't against a great team, but you just needed a W. And I think the Chiefs, um, we can throw the first half out the window offensively, but at least the defense seems to have kind of stabilized things here. And then hopefully the Chiefs did find a rhythm in the second half, and that's something they can capitalize on offensively here moving forward. Is they have a massive matchup with the Ravens next week.
Yeah, no, I think that they definitely did find hopefully a little something to tap into. At least have something to carry forward and a little like we said, a little bit of momentum wave to run heading into next week. Um like also quietly today, the linebackers played pretty well. Like there was a couple of moments where Nick Bolton, probably could have done a little bit better tackling, especially early
Yeah.
on that one missed tackle on Scadaboo. But I mean, Drew Tranquil continues to kind of have a pretty awesome season at linebacker
Yeah.
so far.
And after he was a kind of a disappointment last year, and he's been awesome so far for the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, he's kind of like he's all over the place right now, and so it's like it's great seeing him out there. It's great seeing Leo Chenal still, just kind of playing that like hybrid Leo Chenal role and performing well. Like, I mean, honest to God, we were talking about the defense today. Like, there's not a whole lot of notes to take for the defense, right? Like Spagnuolo had a great game plan. The team went out there and they executed it against an inferior opponent, and they made an inferior opponent look inferior the entire game, right? Like say what you want about the offense and the work that the offense has to do. I feel good about this defense, right? Like we should feel good about this defense and where they're at. Now, will the pass rush be able to hold up against Baltimore? It's a much tougher test next week, right? The pass rush has to keep on consistently getting home, and we can't always rely on coverage sacks, right? Like you saw some early wins out of guys like Chris Jones today. You saw some guys getting collapsed in the
Yeah.
pocket early and putting some pressure on guys, which is what you need to see. But it was also against a pretty bad Giants offensive line, if we're being honest, right? So you
Yeah.
got to be able to go out there and do it against the better teams as well, and win straight up without having to zero blitz everybody.
And then last thing before we get out of here, Rocky, the Chiefs kind of have a Harrison Butker problem right now. He has been far from automatic so far this season, but we've also seen like Butker go on these, like have kind of these downward stretches before. He had a couple years ago where he was injured and they, had to bring in like a kind of musical chairs line of kickers until they could get him back late in the season. And then I think it's like then once he came back, I think he was missing kicks, but then like by the time they got to the playoffs, he was like back to his normal self and was just like nails all postseason. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he's in jeopardy or anything like that, but they got to get that figured out because he can't just keep missing kicks every single week. Like this is
No.
3 straight weeks out, Rocky. So they got to get that figured out in practice this week and figure out what's going on with him.
Yeah, I mean, they're leaving points on the field. And when your offense is struggling as much as it is, you need every point counts regardless. But when you're struggling to put points on the board, like you can't have your kicker leaving points on the field like that. And you can say, yeah, he missed a 58-yarder. We've seen him be pretty automatic from that range, honestly. And I know that maybe that's an unfair statement to say, but in this day and age of football, kickers make a lot further like longer kicks than they used to. And so it's rough because missing the extra points and missing the shorter field goals is the more concerning thing. And I do think that sometimes he just gets the yips a little bit, right? Like we've seen, like you said, we've seen this. Is it an injury?
Yeah.
Who knows? But like I think there's been times in his career where he has like a 2 to 3 week span where he just gets the yips and he just needs to work it out. But what you can't have is like last week where like Travis Kelce drops a game-winning touchdown and Harrison Butker misses a field goal, right? Like at some point, like the next week, we're going to need every single point out of Harrison Butker that he can give us. Like we can't afford to leave points on the field next week.
Yeah, totally agree. And we'll have everything you need to know ahead of the Chiefs Week 4 matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. It would be awesome if Rocky next week we get on here and we're chatting about a 2-2 football team after the Chiefs hopefully pull off an upset against the Ravens. But follow Rocky on Twitter at Rocky Magaña. I'm Steven Serda. That's where you can find me. As always, subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing right here on Foolish Club Media. Got everything you need to know this week. We got a new fantasy show with Kramer coming your way this week that I'm excited about. Beach season, show and BK, Brian's World, all the shows you know and love. So we're excited. Chiefs got a W. They're in the win column, and the sky's not falling now. So stick with us here on Foolish Club Media. We'll have a lot to discuss as we prepare for the Week 4 matchup against the Ravens this week.